All right, Charger Nation, good evening and welcome back to the Charger Leadership Academy. Our guest today is Cara Brown, women's volleyball alum. Cara, how are you today?
I'm good, thank you. How are
Good.
you?
I'm great. I'm fantastic. I'm happy to be back here. It's been a couple of weeks. We took a little hiatus for Thanksgiving break and everything, so it's good to be back. Cara, why don't we start by having you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're up to nowadays?
Okay. Well, as mentioned, my name is Cara Brown. I graduated in 2001 with a sport management degree, and I'm a volleyball alumni. Currently, I live in Amityville, New York, which is on Long Island. And I'm actually married to a Charger alum. He's a football Hall of Famer, Dwayne Brown. We have two kids. They're twins. I'm efficient, apparently. They're 13 years old. And I work for Humana insurance company, and I'm the market director for the downstate New York market, which is the city, Long Island, Hudson Valley, and Jersey. So I never thought I'd be in the insurance industry, but 13 years later, here I am.
Fantastic. I expect that you're already telling your 13-year-olds how great UNH is, and we're preparing their recruiting visit soon, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, they have our height and our athletic ability, so we're trying to.
All right, we'll get them fitted for uniforms.
Yeah.
That's great. Why don't we go back to your days as a Charger and have you tell us a little bit about some lessons maybe that you learned as a student athlete that you've carried with you into later stages of your life.
Okay. So, I just first just to say, I think that being an athlete in general is really important, especially for kids now. So when I think about things I've learned, of course, I learned how to be on time, and I just thought of a story as we were thinking about this interview. I think I was late to practice once and never again, and I slept in. It was a 6 a.m. practice, and I don't know, my alarm didn't go off, and I'm a morning person, but whatever happened. I was late, and every ball in that practice was served directly at me. And I had to, go back and run in the afternoon. But I bring that story up because I think if you can get the basics right, you can get a lot of other things right. And being on time is one of those basics that being a student athlete, I learned really quickly was very important. And so kind of a funny story, but Robin Salters made sure we got the basics right. Aside from that, I mean, being a student athlete is difficult, and I can't even imagine 20 years later what it's like to be a student athlete, because at the time, some of the things I learned were just balancing a lot of different things that are thrown at you, and that's so important right now in my daily life. Prioritizing. So we were student athletes, student first, athlete second. So prioritizing our grades and making sure that we were doing well in school. And I think we were always one of the teams that, as a whole got a 3.5 average or higher. And that was number one priority. And then our athletic career obviously was super important as well, but prioritizing was something that I learned as a student athlete. And then I just think about setting goals, short-term and long-term. So as an athlete, we were trying to win the next game and then win the season and, think about the next 4 years. But I think being an athlete kind of helped me be able to think short-term and long-term about goals and setting them and preparing for them.
So outside of maybe showing up late to practice and having to run for most of the rest of the day, what are some adversities that you've faced, whether it was as a student athlete or after you graduated? And tell me a little bit about kind of your mindset and how you overcame that adversity.
Yeah. And I know I've talked to you about this before, but when I was a student athlete, I mean, first of all, just being a student athlete, I think is difficult and has its own adversities on a daily basis anyway. But my freshman year, I got diagnosed with cancer, and I had to undergo chemotherapy and radiation and surgery. And I always frame that up. That's probably one of the biggest adversities I've had in my life at 18 years old. And I often think like, okay, if I could get that out of the way and the rest of my life is going to be good now, that would be really cool. But I just think of overcoming adversity. And, I wanted to come up with a plan. And that was super important. And that's something that as an athlete, you do as a student athlete. You come up with a plan to succeed. You have to have a support system, which I always think about, as an athlete, that's your team. If you don't have a good support system as a team, and the same thing when I was kind of going through this battle for my life, right? I had to have a good support system and people that I knew I could count on. That was super important. And having people around me that were positive. And, as I've gotten older, maybe your group of friends shrinks a little bit, but they become the people that will continue to support you regardless of what's going on in your life. And I think that's a really important lesson I learned. And I just think that those are all lessons that I learned by being a student athlete that helped me overcome this really big adversity in life. And then, since then, that happened when I was 18, but I just think that there's daily adversities that I think about planning and my support system and being positive, that, these are things that I learned as a student athlete, that even daily adversities, these help to overcome.
It is an incredible story. Your story is of overcoming and beating cancer during college, and just a great testament to your mental strength, your ability to persevere. We talked a lot about mental strength and kind of overcoming adversities during this past fall, and obviously going through the pandemic, dating all the way back to last spring, having seasons canceled, no volleyball season. We're hopeful, keeping our fingers crossed that we'll be able to play a season here later this winter. But what type of advice do you think you would give to our current student athletes who've had either seasons cut short or just are facing a lot of unknowns right now?
I can't imagine what they must be going through. And I just think it is such an incredible time of life to be in college. I talk to my kids about this now. And I tell them those are the best years. They really were, because you're experiencing so many different and new things. And I think when something happens that's completely outside of our control, which this is, there's only certain things we can control in what's happening with COVID. It's just not one of those things. I always think about having a plan, right? Or having goals. And I always tell people you should have a goal, make a plan, expect that there's going to be huge wrenches thrown in your plan. Make a different plan, continue to focus on your goal and keep it moving. And that's way oversimplifying, but I don't know what the plan is. If they're able to have, my assumption is, and I think, are you guys, NCAA is allowing people to play a second year, right?
Right. So right now, the NCAA is granting an extra year of eligibility.
Okay.
For
Okay.
any,
So there
any
is
athlete. So
right.
All those Chargers out there can come back and put on the blue and gold for another year.
And what a way to come back and potentially get, a year under their belts on their masters or something else. I don't know if I have great advice except to say, how can you maximize your time and potentially get another year of education out of it while still being an athlete. And I know a lot of the athletes won't go on to a professional career, so this may be it. But I mean, I would, if it were me, I'd look for a way to play that last year or an additional year.
Yeah, I think just the overarching advice there of making the most of this time rather than sitting back and thinking about losing a season or having a shortened season, even looking at it as an opportunity or using it as an advantage to take this time off, right, and either get better at your athletics or get ahead in academics or find out what it is that you want to do for your career, whatever it might be. So I think that's fantastic advice. And it kind of leads me into my next question, which I like to ask of our guests, is when you are going through maybe some tough times or you have a bad day at work or maybe your 13-year-olds are annoying you a little bit, whatever it might be.
Never.
Yeah, I figured, that's a bad example. I'm sure they never do that. So I'm wondering if you have any favorite quotes or phrases that you think of or maybe repeat to yourself often?
And I was thinking about favorite quote, and I kind of mentioned it before, like if you're having a tough day or something like that, the 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 quote that I think about always has to do with change in that, and I kind of mentioned it before. A lot of times you have a bad day because things don't go as you planned, right? Or you planned out this perfect day or this perfect event, and all of a sudden something happened. Now it's not so perfect. And I always go back to, you know, have a plan, expect that there's going to be some kind of wrench thrown in it, readjust your plan, and figure out what your end goal is. And so I know that's not a quote, but it is a mindset. And I do think about that often, because there's just going to be certain things that are outside of our control, and you can only control so much. And so at the end of the day, if you're able to adjust, even if you need to take a minute, if you're able to adjust, I think that you can deal with the outcome much better.
That's great. If you were looking back, would you say that you did that well as a student athlete?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. I'm trying to think of, as a student athlete. So when we talk about adjusting, I came in as a freshman, and I was an all-county volleyball player, and I sat the bench for 2 years. I didn't see playing time, and I was a cheerleader, and I had to learn the system. And in all honesty, I had to learn how to play volleyball the UNH way. So I think about that was not how I planned for things to go. But I saw that there was potential, and there was a bigger picture, and a coach that wanted to invest in me. And so I adjusted my expectations and started playing and starting junior year. So just that, as it relates to even being a student athlete, things certainly didn't go the way I planned initially.
Yeah.
But I guess
that's very often the case.
Yeah. I guess that goes back to long-term goal planning. So, but yeah, no, I didn't always adjust well, and I still don't. I have to remind myself of that. At the end of the day, I'm an Italian, and I have a short temper, and I have to keep that in check too. So
we all have our faults.
Yeah.
So in that light, if you go back and maybe put yourself in your 18-year-old shoes, what advice would you give yourself, knowing what you know now?
Yeah, 18, even 20-year-old shoes, I would say there's probably a couple things. The first is to be patient. And as I was thinking about this conversation, I was thinking about when I graduated. So maybe that's my 21-year-old self. But when I graduated, I kind of went into the career force, and I got a job with the Bridgeport Sound Tigers, which was on my path to running Madison Square Garden, which is what I always wanted to do. That's why I became a sport management major. Then, I got that job, which is exactly what I wanted, and realized it wasn't what I wanted. But the advice I would give is to be patient, because I definitely thought, I have a sport management degree from one of the few universities in the country that actually offers it. I have a ton to offer, and I'm putting together spreadsheets. And I was so frustrated, and I actually got into an argument with my boss, and he's like, "You college kids think you come into the workforce, you think you know everything just because you have a degree." And I was like, "Well, I kind of do know everything. I can do more than spreadsheets. Give me a chance here." And he was like, "You have to put in your time." So I understood, yet I didn't, because I knew I could do more. But I mean, the advice I would have given myself at that moment was to be a little patient and prove yourself. And I think that's what, I have some younger people that I know that are recently coming out of college, and they have master's degrees, which is amazing. I don't have a master's degree yet. I keep putting it on my list of things that I want to accomplish, and instead of prioritize career development and some other things, I still need to get my master's degree. But people coming out of school right now with a master's degree, they've invested an incredible amount of time and money into their education, which is so important, yet they don't have a lot of experience. And so being patient, I think, and giving yourself time to get experience in the field, I think would be really important. And then I would just say, take chances. I'm actually, my husband and I, I would, if I were to come to a mountain, I'd jump off and just see what happened. And he would say, hold on, let's just see if your chute works. And, so we actually make a good team because he pulls me back when I'm ready to maybe take chances that might be too big. But, we were living in New Haven, Connecticut, and our kids were 1 year old, they're twins. And I had an opportunity career-wise to move to Virginia Beach where we knew no one. He would have to leave work. We had 1 year old twins. I mean, it was insane to do this, but we went, and it was actually just a really great opportunity. And so I'd just say, you have the ability to take a chance, because oftentimes it works out and you put yourself in a better position, and the experience that you gain from that chance is often pretty positive, even if it doesn't work out in the end.
Yeah, there's a lot of opportunity out there. If you limit yourself to a region or even one specific career path, oftentimes you're going to get stuck and get frustrated potentially, and you're limiting yourself. Quite frankly, if you open it up to, and it's kind of cliche to say, but a world of possibilities, then you can really expand what you can accomplish, and probably going to learn some cool things and experience some awesome adventures along the way. So, Cara, I can't let you go without maybe a story or two about our famous Coach Salters. If you have any fun stories other than making you run for a full day after being late, if you have any fun stories about Coach Salters, I'm sure our listeners would appreciate it just as much as she would.
I have so many. You know what? Here's a good one. Well, aside from the fact that when we were late to practice, all of a sudden I saw her in the corner, like warming her shoulder up, ready to start serving, and she, Cara, you're on. And I had to serve receive every single pass.
That's why she walks around the office like this sometimes.
Warming it up, getting ready. So, and her accuracy was amazing when she was mad. So every single serve came to me. But yeah, we used to have meal plans too. And so we would go as a team, especially in preseason, we would go to the cafeteria together after practice. And of course we would get, healthy meals, protein, some carbs, veggies. We were on point. And then we'd sneak into the cafeteria and just eat cookies. And, so as we're coming out of the cafeteria, she's coming in, and we were talking, and she's like, you have chocolate all over your teeth. I know what you're doing. So we would go inside the cafeteria and just eat cookies where she couldn't see us, and ruin our meal planning.
Well, she's still just as tough today.
She is, but I don't think I would have liked it any other way. I think that the structure was really important, especially for people that for the first time are leaving home. I think the structure was important, and I think her focus on, and I mentioned it before, but her focus on the details was really important. And I think that now that if you can, I say that at work, I say that at home, if we can't get the basics right, you're never going to be able to get the other stuff right. And in the basics, like being on time, looking at the details, following a meal plan, structure in general, I think is a good thing, and paying attention to the details is too. So she's a good coach, good friend.
You don't advance, you don't win as many championships and advance as far in the NCAA tournament as she did without being a good coach and having some discipline. So
yeah,
that's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, Cara, it's been fun. I've enjoyed talking with you. I appreciate you coming on the Charger Leadership Academy and sharing some of your experience and knowledge with current Chargers.
Thank you for having me. It's been great.
All right, Charger Nation, that'll do it for another episode of the Charger Leadership Academy.
Bye, everyone.